When people find out that I'm an interior designer, there's three things that they really want to talk to me about: trends, colours, and quick fixes. What I'd really love for them to ask me about, though, are about budgets, timelines, and how to work with your trades. Most renovations start out with a great sense of excitement, and why wouldn't they? People are imagining their future and what that's actually going to look like. But I want you to think about what that future is going to cost you, because that's a really, really important question that a lot of home renovators fail to answer before they start. So here's my question to you. Unless you know what that renovation is going to cost you, how do you know that you can afford it? It's a question worth answering, though, because if you start a renovation without understanding the true costs of what those dreams are going to cost you, you could very well end up with a project that never gets finished. Next is the timeline. Now, if you can understand your project timeline, then you can actually handle the stress of that renovation. And these are for those of you who are actually living on site during the renovation. By understanding the project timeline, you can plan your life around the chaos of that renovation. And believe me, there is plenty of chaos during a renovation. So don't add any further stress that you need to. For those of you who live on site during a renovation, there's the dust, there's the 7 a.m. starts, there's the lack of privacy, and there's the feeling that the project is just never going to end. So by understanding how each component connects with the other, you can, in a way, minimize the stress somewhat. It's still going to be very stressful for you. Trust me on that point, and trust all the other people who have ever lived on site during a renovation. However, you don't want to be adding additional stresses to that renovation by not understanding how the timeline works. Now, let me give you a really great example of a timeline that new renovators or DIYers quite often come up against during a renovation. The kitchen cabinets get installed by the joiner, and you're so excited because you can kind of feel like the end is in sight. And then comes the delay for the benches. It's a long period of time. And then once the benches are put in, then the fit off happens. So you can see that although there's the great excitement and it's such a great milestone to get to, but there's still a long way to go. And that can add a lot of stress, particularly if you're not aware of those delays. And that leads me to my third point. How do you work with trades effectively? When I talk about working with trades effectively, I mean when a problem arises, and that is going to happen during a renovation, guaranteed. But when that problem arises, how does that problem get resolved? Are you involved in that decision-making process, or are you told how it's all going to happen? Now, if you have a really good rapport, you've built that relationship right from the start with your trades, then you will more than likely be part of that decision-making process. However, if you haven't put the time and effort into building that relationship, more than likely you're going to be told what the outcome is. Let me tell you why this could very well make or break your renovation. If you're part of that decision-making process, you can keep your eye on those design outcomes that you have had right from the start. Whereas if you are not involved in that decision-making process, then your design outcomes may very well veer off course. The result being the aesthetic that you're after is not fulfilled. So, 3 things that you want to keep at the forefront of your mind before you do any work. Make sure you plan really well for your renovation. You want to understand what everything is going to cost you before you start. You want to know what your timeline is. And you also really need to work very hard on building those relationships with your trades to make sure that your vision comes to life.